Hi, this is Billie Beene here with another segment of Truth by Billie Beene. This will be June 26, 2022. New channel. I'll go over that again. Episode 337. Nukes in Ukraine and pointed toward Moscow. What's going on in the new Madrid seismic zone in the middle of the U.S. And we can look ahead to some really big events in July, August, and September. So let's get started. And I'd like to say thanks, like, subscribe, and share to my new channel. On June 2nd, there was a cyber attack on YouTube and a lot of channels went away. You can still see my older videos on YouTube, but I cannot access that Google YouTube account, and Google could not download it to my new equipment because my laptop was also taken out. So I have a new computer, I have a new channel, so thanks, like, subscribe, and share to this channel so that you get notification for future videos. And I'd like to say some of my sources for this information is God in the Bible, Patriot Subscribers, Alexander Mercouris, A Christoferou, Dr. William Mount, Monkey Werx, Clif, Decode, ETN News, Jim Willie, Benjamin Fulford, Simon Parks, Dabu 77. So, and I think David Nino Rodriguez interviewed Carrie Cassidy. I think that's also in here. And I'd like to say welcome to all 50 states, including Alaska, Hawaii, the First Nations, Cherokee, Navajo, Hopi, Chickasaw, Mohawk, Apache, First Nation, Pitt River, California, Mohegans, Yakama Nation in Washington State, Potawatomi, Ojibwe Nation in northern Minnesota, a proud people who want peace and justice, Choctaw, Abenaki tribe, Cheyenne, Massanutten, Pequot, Blackfoot in Montana, Spokane and Covell, Powhatan tribe, the Seminoles in Florida, Red Crow tribe in Kentucky, Salt River tribe in Arizona, and the nations of Canada, England, France, Ireland, Philippines, South Africa, Netherlands, also called Holland, Indonesia, Scotland, Germany, Switzerland, New Zealand, Maldives, Nepal, Norway, Australia, Chile, Thailand, Belgium, Mexico, Brazil, Russia, Panama, Guam, U.S. territory, Jamaica, and Iceland are living in Spain and other people in Spain, Wales in the U.K., Sweden, Italy, Puerto Rico, U.S. territory, Romania, Bermuda, Bahamas, British territories, Morocco, Argentina, Northern Marianas Island, Denmark, Bolivia, Uganda, Iceland, Serbia, Bulgaria, Mauritius, a small island nation off of Africa, and the newest, Ukraine, the Czech Republic, Poland, Costa Rica, Malta, China, Hungary, Israel, and Finland. So let's get started. Okay, I have, let me get this out of the way. And I also want to say this about this microphone I have. It's supposed to be one of the best. It's HyperX. Okay, just a little technical note, because it took me a couple of hours to get it hooked up. And I'm like, I know it's something simple. It's something simple. It should be automatic. Well, for my computer, I have an additional set of speakers. So when I hooked up the microphone, in the settings, this microphone automatically turned on its speakers, which kept the microphone from working because I had an additional set of speakers. So in the settings, I just had to change the speaker settings from the microphone to my computer. So just when I was explaining it to the guy who sold me the microphone, he was astonished. He had never heard of that. I said, yeah, that's why I wanted to be sure and tell you, in case other people came in and said they couldn't get their microphone to work. Okay, Now, W77 and other sources are coming out with information about the overturn of Roe versus Wade. Now, we know this has to do with returning. What it does, it returns the issue of abortion to the states. Now, Dr. William Mount had come out with this information, as had other individuals. And for me, I was wondering, who, the Supreme Court is not meeting. The Supreme Court has not met in about 2 years plus. And Dr. William Mount said the only judge he knew who was still alive was Samuel Alito, who's about 72 years old. What this is, and it relates back to the Bible, the way that God could use pagan kings like the king of Egypt or Nebuchadnezzar to further the aims of God. In this case, multiple sources are saying that, it wasn't the Supreme Court's not meeting. So it was actually the shadow CIA who's coming out with this abortion change. And they're doing it controlled by the Rockefeller branch of the bloodline families to bring on riots in the U.S. And we had heard, like last week, that the National Guard was deployed all over the United States in anticipation of this coming about. But people are rejoicing. If there are any riots, it will be the paid crisis actors by the shadow CIA. Yeah. So we've got that going on. Now, Simon Parkes is bringing out some information about food shortages. And I find him a source of intel. So the food shortages, we have multiple sources on this, and it's different everywhere. Okay. Yes, there may be some shelves that are empty, and this is the prevailing comment I'm hearing from multiple sources, but not, a food shortage that would result in famine or starvation. Those are mainstream media lies put out by the shadow government, this shadow CIA. Okay, now, Simon is talking about the elders. He's talking about in China. There are the elders, and we know the communists, the CCP, are against one another. Now, he's saying that Chairman Xi has not been assassinated. That's because he's backed by the elders of the Chinese families, like the dragon families, which God a few videos ago verified was truth, and some information the economist Jim Willie put out. Okay. So the dragon families support President Xi, and Simon Parkes is also saying that some big events are going to be happening the end of August, 1st of September, that are going to wake up the U.S. normies, as Clif calls them. And he's bringing this new information out about Taiwan and China. We keep hearing China's going to invade Taiwan, and he's saying there's no need for China to invade Taiwan because in Taiwan the deep underground areas have already been taken out by the white hats, the militaries, and they were under sea. So there's no need for China to invade Taiwan. And we keep hearing that China and Taiwan are going to unite. Okay, Benjamin Fulford, a Canadian journalist, lives in Japan and has for decades. He worked for about 20 years for Forbes. Okay, he's saying in the West and Europe, I think Australia may be in this group also, we have our economies going down. We have the rest of the world not exporting nor importing because they won't accept the fiat currency that's not backed by gold. So stocks are down, bonds are down, the stock market is down. And Benjamin Fulford is bringing this information out that the crypto, was a digital currency, had back doors, and that value has been stolen by the deep state. So now he's adding information about Europe, a Europe collapse. And this has to do with food, the cost going up, gas, a gas shortage, and the cost going up. So the European people and the people in the United States are not going to tolerate this when they understand it all has to do with their political leaders making political statements and taking stands against Russia. And then we come to find out multiple factions within the United States shadow government, the United States shadow military, the shadow NATO, and other shadow parts of other nations are prepping to push into World War III any way they have to. If they have to use nukes, they will do it. So I'll get into that. Okay. And Benjamin Fulford is bringing this out. Gas is being cut off to Europe now that the sanctions against Russia are taking place because Europe refuses to pay the price that Russia is asking for its oil and gas, and they're not allowing the Russian pipelines to flow. Okay. Benjamin Fulford says international special forces are going into the deep underground areas in Nicaragua, Nigeria, Indonesia, and taking out many things. Okay. Now, he's bringing this up. There's the White Hat plan to take place, we believe, July, August, September 2022, is that the actor puppet JB will appear to die or be incapacitated, such as a stroke, and that this will lead to military, the U.S. military, taking over, resulting in President Trump being returned. Because Benjamin Fulford maybe a month ago said the dragon families globally are not going to invest in the U.S. until President Trump returns. And we say, yes, God, bring that. Okay. Jim Willie, a PhD economist from Costa Rica, and Benjamin Fulford also weighs in on the economy. And they're talking about BRICS and SCO, and these are nations, Russia, China, and other nations that are aligning in an international banking group and they are doing export and import, but not the United States, Europe, and I believe Australia. Okay. Now, Benjamin Fulford is also talking about this flashpoint, and once I put pieces together, I think yesterday, I was alarmed and even more alarmed this morning when I received some new information. Okay, so Lithuania and Kaliningrad definitely is a flashpoint to bring on World War III. Positioned and prepped, and we will see a lot of money and resources and troop movements have all been aimed for the past 3 months or so toward this point. So, by the shadow parts of governments and militaries. Okay. Now, recently, there was a January 6th TV program. Ivanka Trump came on and made this statement that she didn't believe the 2020 election was stolen. Benjamin Fulford says that she and her family were threatened with being murdered. So, that's why she said that. And he's saying the hype for food shortage are mainstream media lies, and that to know what to invest in, not stocks and bonds, buy real stuff, land, commodities, antiques, watches that are valuable, things like that, something real. Okay, Jim Willie, PhD economist out of Costa Rica. His website is goldenjackass.com, and he puts out a monthly newsletter, Hat Trick. And he's talking about the actor J.B. being controlled by a branch of the bloodline families, Rockefeller, and that his fall from his bike was a trigger signal for events in the U.S., and that this is going to lead to arrest going up. And Benjamin Fulford in last week or so said inside the U.S. we have 1 million people to be arrested. Now let's recall. We have them all spread out through Congress, but many of those people have already been arrested. The Supreme Court, but most of them have been arrested or they've passed away or they're waiting trial. The FBI, the CIA, a lot of these people have been arrested, but there are still others. And the deep state then infiltrates all of our court systems from federal, state, and local. Many inside even mega churches, schools, law enforcement. So yeah, there's a lot of people to be arrested. Now, Jim Willie is also saying this. NATO is trying to begin World War III. And that the nations outside of the U.S. are selling U.S. Treasury and bonds and not buying. They're not investing in the U.S. Now, Jim Willie's take on the food shortage is like other sources. The shelves may be empty of some products, but there's not a shortage of food. Don't let the mainstream media scare you. Now he's saying J.P. Morgan Bank is laying off 2,000 employees who work in derivatives and mortgages. And we've heard that real estate is going to be going down. Okay. And he's talking about abortion and return to the states. Yeah, the shadow CIA attempt to bring on riots. But this, he's also predicting that actor JB is going to be stepping down, military takeover, and President Trump returns. And the normies wake up. Okay. And he's saying first vice president could be JFK Jr. or General Flynn. And he's saying that riots had been planned. The shadow CIA and FBI had hired crisis actors to do riots in Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Atlanta, and Philadelphia. And he's saying the EBS is ready to be rolled out, because we know that's part of the scenario we can expect. And he's saying currently inside the U.S. military, there is a purge going on of some generals. So we see some arrests are being made of the deep state who are in control. We understand the shadow part of the U.S. military is about 30%. So those shadow generals are being purged right now. All right. Now we have some information about the food shortage. We have gene decode. I have an interview by David Nino Rodriguez of Cassidy. Both of whom are talking about the recent deaths, the sudden deaths. We had 10,000 cattle suddenly die in Kansas, but there were other states. Now there's been a big die-off of sheep. What Cassidy is hearing is that just like the Evergreen container ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal for several months, like in March, contained a 30-year black project that involved poisoning the soil. And I recall that Gene Decode also reported on that as being true. What Cassidy is bringing out is that soil somehow has been released inside the United States. And what it does, the poisoned soil eats the natural soil and then releases poisons. So that scenario is going to require additional sources and research. Okay. Simon Parkes. Yeah, he's also reporting some of the shelves may be empty, but there's no real food shortage. Okay. Now, let's look at the food shortage in Sri Lanka. Now, here is India. Here is the little island nation of Sri Lanka. And they are experiencing empty shelves in their grocery stores. There's 22 million people who live there. Now, 1 year ago, their government banned chemical fertilizers, which means their crops had just, their crop yield for this year has been down by at least 50%. Now, this same government is saying to government workers, take Friday off and go home and plant crops. Well, you don't just plant crops. It takes months for them to produce. So the food prices are going up, plus there's less food. gas is going up, less gas in Sri Lanka. The people are revolting against their government. And it sounds as if that's a reasonable conclusion for them. Okay. So we have A Christoferou. He's a Greek journalist that brings out some good information on what's going on in Ukraine. And he's also talking about the Supreme Court finding on abortion, returning it to the states, and wondering how that will impact foreign policy. Yeah, that's unknown. Okay. Now, Lavrov, he's a Russian international part of the government, okay, is saying that Lithuania and Moldova is now being invited to join the EU. And it's, and also a candidate to join NATO. All right. So that's being put out as the Russian minister is just commenting somewhat in sarcasm. All right. Hungary is putting out this. They would like to see negotiations go on with Russia for a ceasefire. And Hungary did not do any sanctions against Russia. And so now A Christoferou is putting this out. We have multiple encirclements called cauldrons, encirclements by the Russians around Ukraine military, Azov, and mercenaries. And he's saying that in multiple locations inside Ukraine, the Ukraine military plus about 2,000 to 5,000 soldiers, Azov, Mercs, are about to be killed or they must surrender. Zelensky, the actor puppet for the head of the Ukraine government, who's controlled by the shadow U.S. government, and the shadow U.S. military, and the shadow NATO, says, no, stand and fight. And yet, whatever reserves, and it's my belief, these reserves are NATO. We had that report by Jim Willie a couple of weeks ago about the rumor that NATO was coming in, putting on Ukraine military uniforms, going to Donbass. I submit to you, I believe that's who came in and brought some, what Dr. William Mount calls firecrackers with them. Okay, I think it was NATO. I think NATO has been orchestrating for several months now, trying to get World War III going. Okay, so A Christoferou is reporting this, that there were Polish mercenaries inside Ukraine, and 80 have been killed by the Russian military or by the Donetsk or Luhansk People's Republic militia. So 80 Polish mercenaries have been killed in a zinc factory in the Donbass area. Also destroyed were 20 armored vehicles and 8 missile launchers. And this happened in the town of Konstantinovka and reported by Russian Lieutenant General Igor Koneskov. All right. And they were European and NATO weapons. Okay. Now, he's reporting this. Lithuania, Kaliningrad. I'm going to draw you a map shortly. Europe is throwing Lithuania under the bus, saying it was Lithuania who wanted to do the sanctions against Russia. I submit to you, this has been a widespread shadow NATO plan. It involved Europe, it involved NATO, and other nations. So I don't know why the Europeans are trying to say, no, we weren't involved. Yes, you were. Okay. In England, the good part of the English government is trying to replace Boris Johnson, but there's so many corrupt politicians there, they're having a hard time finding someone to replace him. And in Germany, this is an example of what Germany's sanctions against Russia is costing the German people. Robert Habeck, the Green Minister, says, cut out those 5-minute showers and go to just 2 minutes. Because we need to conserve on water and heat and energy. Okay. A Mercouris, he's a journalist based in London, is talking about a location, Lysychansk. And I submit to you, the part of this information that's coming out from Christoferou and Mercouris reflects an increased move by the Russian military in their knowledge of some other things that have been going on in the background. Okay. So in Lysychansk, which is in the Donbass area, the Russian military made a very fast advance, and some were speculating, did they have planes come in and drop off paratroopers? An alternative view is that Russia used the gas engine T-80 tanks to make a fast advance. Now, in Lysychansk, the Ukraine military tried to retreat with the equipment, and they were taken out and killed by Russian artillery. That's what happens in real war. So, all right, now we have this that from A Mercouris. The West and Europe and other nations are out of extra weapons that they can resupply Ukraine. So it looks like no more resupply of weapons for Ukraine coming in the future. Now reports are coming out that Germany, their government is telling them, next winter we'll just have to be strong and be cold in our sanctions against Russia. I don't think the German people are going to tolerate this. Okay. And Hungary wants to negotiate a ceasefire. Now, Lithuania is blocking steel and construction goods to Kaliningrad. But this is a flashpoint. It was set up by the Shadow NATO to be a flashpoint. Belarus preps for war. And if this goes forward and war breaks out, it's anticipated Russia would immediately occupy Estonia. So now, I'll draw you a map. And we'll see what is cooking here. Because when I began to put these pieces together yesterday, alarmed. Okay. Russia. And then we have Ukraine, Belarus. We have Lithuania. We have Latvia. We have Estonia. Now we have the small area, Kaliningrad. And this is a port city. And it's part of Russia. And then we have Poland. We have Slovakia. We have Hungary. We have Romania. All right, now, I had wondered what all this rhetoric was, this talk of NATO inviting Sweden and Finland to join NATO. Now we'll see from this breakdown. Okay, so we have land here. We have, this is the Gulf of Finland. We have right here, Sweden. Oh, and what do we have right in this area here, in this water area? What's been building up since about mid-March? It was exercises by NATO nations, and they have warships and troops right here. And so, when Lithuania was given the signal to cut off Russian shipment by rail and road through Lithuania of goods, Russia and the government of Kaliningrad came out to tell the people, you don't have to be, panic buying and hoarding, because we're going to put in extra ferries and we're going to ship it by water. So it's going to go from Russia down this way. But oh, look, here's these warships already in place. And what's going to happen when someone accidentally takes out a Russian ship? What's going to happen? So this is why, and I wondered, as soon as Lithuania said, no shipment by rail or road by Russia through Lithuania now. It has to go by sea to Kaliningrad, and I wondered, why is Belarus immediately prepping for war? Well, I'm sure Belarus knew about these NATO warships out there already in place. Okay. So now we can see why almost immediately Russia would occupy Estonia. So, yeah, that's been going on. Now, this came out too, and this information about the warships, this came out from Monkey Werx. And I got that yesterday, put the pieces together, said, okay, I'm seeing it. Now, Dr. William Mount, he's ex-military and previously a ambassador to Ukraine, came out about midnight last night, 6:26, with this information that about the same time, I guess Dr. William Mount got the information about the same time that the good part of the military got it, that at that same time inside Russia, President Putin plus his generals were rushed to the Kremlin for an emergency meeting when it became known that here's Russia, here's Ukraine, here's the Donbass area, which is Luhansk, Donetsk of Ukraine, that right in this area, 1, 2, 3, 4 missile launchers have been set up with what Dr. William Mount calls firecrackers, which are his term for nukes. And they're all pointed this way to Moscow. And I submit to you that that report we had a couple of weeks ago by Jim Willie of NATO coming in, Ukraine, putting on the Ukraine military uniforms, and then coming forward, I submit to you, that's when they brought these in and they've set them up. And this was, I think they were already inside Ukraine with the firecrackers. They were waiting for Lithuania to make that statement and have Russia set up with their ships. And NATO had their warships already prepped. And then they were going to set these up. So now, it's good to know what is going on so we Christians can know what to pray against. And Dr. William Mount is saying 2 independent nations put these firecrackers in, aimed at Moscow, a part of the shadow U.S. government, and that the United States is currently at DEFCON 2 and the silos are being opened. So, yeah. Now we know what to pray against, don't we? All right. Now we'll move on to sci-fi. Because part of this war scenario is also some of this sci-fi information coming out. It's all orchestrated. It's all related. Okay. Now, Clif High, based on his WebBot data, is saying that July 1 to 13 looks good. But after 13 plus, 13 through 17, there's going to be an emotional wall. So something's going to happen. And he said the dollar's going to go down, the economy's going to go down, and there's going to be some kind of federal action through social media. And he said it's going to last until the summer of 2023, and that we're going to have show trials of the feds, which he calls communist, in Maryland, Delaware, and in Italy and the Vatican, and that there could be some food riots in the fall in the United States and Europe. Well, we know the shadow CIA is hiring crisis actors to do that. Okay. Now, Clif is bringing this out, and this is based on the WebBot data, the WebBot language, that there's a cosmic force on the earth, pressing on the earth. And we know that's true. We've known that for years. And it's going to increase earthquakes. And in the fall, we're going to have information disclosure coming out about the ETs and the UFOs. And that this information is going to come out in July to August from multiple nations on the internet and other ways. And he says it's going to be a temporal marker. Yeah, so we got that. Now, Gene Decode is bringing this out. That that's been about 6 months ago, I think. The White Hats took down Facebook, and they did it on a global basis, and what they did was take out code from Facebook that Facebook could not retrieve. Maybe that's what happened to my YouTube account, because Google could not restore it. Okay. Now, the White Hats can also wipe out the dark web. They can take out cryptocurrency because that's digital. And he says that for the crypto, 52% is under the control of China under the Three Gorges Dam. Decode reports that the Three Gorges Dam is virtually destroyed, and the pictures you're seeing on the internet are old pictures. And he's saying that the normies too, which Clif calls, the people who watch mainstream media and actually believe it, that's all their news source, have to come face to face because the mainstream media is going to be reporting about ETs and UFOs. And it's going to be very shocking for a lot of people. Now, he's talking about bases that are very, very deep. In Pine Gap in Australia, there's 23 levels. It almost reaches the center of the Earth, as did the primary base in Antarctica, Base 211. In national forest and parks, we have very deep areas too. Now, he's talking about the God sending a soul into a baby, and it's done via a stargate. And we know that life exists as soon as the egg and the sperm combine. There's a spark of light, a stargate opens, the soul and spirit from God is life. The soul contains the individual's will, emotions, and also the individual's capabilities that come equipped to achieve their destiny, which the soul, the individual, and God have agreed upon before the soul comes to earth. That's my belief. Okay. But at any rate, Decode is saying the soul is put into the egg sperm as soon as it unites, and the spirit comes in to give it life. This is a child, and that God had heard the cries of the babies in the womb who were being aborted and murdered, and said no more. Now, these babies, as do miscarriages, go to heaven. You cannot extinguish the Spirit of God. It is eternal. And if you had an abortion, or you're a male and you were associated with that, understand the baby is forgiven the individuals who aborted it, and waits for its mother and dad to come to heaven to be with it. So that's going on. Now, Decode is saying that some of these rituals that involve young humans are designed to open portals. The entities, the fallen angels, the hybrids plus have no souls and no spirit energy. They sacrifice humans to get that energy to open portals. Okay, during their ceremonies. Now we understand those individuals have to be taken off Earth. Okay, Now, right, and the difference between a portal, it can go horizontal or down, but it cannot go as a stargate, can go up or down. And so this has to do also with needing human sacrifices to operate. So, at any rate, it's good to know how our souls get to us when we're in the womb of our mothers, and that love does conquer all. Okay, now we're on heads up. Okay, in the new Madrid seismic zone that exists, here's Florida, we'll come down to Texas, okay, Florida. In 1811, 1812, in about a 3-month period like December, January, 3 earthquakes occurred that had been 9s. Now they're downgraded to 7, 8. I think about 1,500 people were killed, but this area of the United States was very sparsely populated. But it goes from like Arkansas, Missouri, here's Iowa, goes over to Illinois, Indiana, we have Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, and then outside it goes all the way down to when this happened. This was the primary earthquake area, and then but the aftershocks and damages spread out all the way to Louisiana, North Carolina, South Carolina. Now in this area we have the Appalachian Mountains. So, now the predictions have been, they're up to like 40 to 50% for a similar event to occur. And these scenarios were catastrophic for the United States based on the studies I looked at when I was in college, because this is now a massive populated area. Also has, power lines and other energy forms. So, yeah, it was predicted to be catastrophic for the entire U.S. because it would disrupt flow of goods from one coast to another. Also, power supplies and other things. Okay. So the prediction was 40 to 50% for reoccurrence in the next 50 years, which we're currently in. So I took note when a source I routinely use was predicting a recurrence. So ETN News, he does a good job on tracking earthquakes and volcanoes, and I'm always impressed with his ability to predict what's going to happen. So he came out on 6/24 yesterday and predicted in the New Madrid seismic area, and that's primarily Memphis, Nashville, all the way over to the Appalachian Mountains. He's predicting a 6.4 earthquake to take place in the next few days, which would be June 27 to about July 4. So that's a heads up if you live in this area. And also, for us to know what to pray against. Now, there was a small earthquake in South Carolina this morning. So anywhere you have a small earthquake, it can reduce the pressure that's in the new Madrid. So that's good. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that and see what is happening. Now we'll move ahead to look ahead, because we want some good news for sure. So look ahead. So we have ShariRaye. He's talking about, the Supreme Court taking down Roe versus Wade. It is a great for the people of God, for God and his people. Absolutely. And God can work in mysterious ways. He really can. Okay. So now we have, she's talking about illegals are complaining that they're getting hurt at the southern border when they have to climb that 30-foot wall and they fall off. Okay. Now we have Facebook. I had this. Phil Godleski. And he's a journalist who regularly hears information directly from President Trump's publicity team. That 10 states have decertified the count for the November 2020 event, and that constitutes a violation of our Constitution and would prompt a military takeover. We say bring it. Yes, we're ready for that. Now, Jim Willie is bringing this out, that he recently heard, this has to do with JFK Jr., in a video, a song, I'm Coming Home. So that'll be great. We look forward to that. Okay, a short prayer. This is a cleansing prayer modeled by Decode. I remove permission to be in us, on us, around us, on earth, off world, any dimension. Any person, place, or thing not of God, any assemblage of fallen angels, AI, nanobot, and other forms of tech. Any non-terrestrial species, spirit, thought form, operating system, genetic overlay, past, present, and future. And we say, get away from us in the name of Jesus. Okay. This prayer is based on the King James Version, Genesis 16. And the name of it is Jehovah Nissi. And that's translated Jehovah our banner. Okay. O Lord, Jehovah Nissi, God our banner. He who prepares a well in the desert of living water, who we call Jesus Yeshua. Just as he communicated to Hagar in Kadesh, and Kadesh, a sacred place in the desert, and comforted her. Hagar named the well in Kadesh, where an angel of the Lord spoke to her, as Bir Lahai-Roi, translated well of the living one who sees me. And we can understand that our God sees us, hears us, and comforts us. Our God, Jehovah Nissi, is our banner of love over us and our children and our nation. We pray, O Lord, that your banner of love be over all nations and all people who call you their God. And we thank you, Father, Son, Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and the Holy Spirit. And I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there, continue to pray. God is in charge and He is on the move. I love you, and I'll see you soon.